सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Hari Om. Today I thought that we need to again pause for a moment and take notes about some basic questions, not what we have studied till now. That's one way of looking at it. But on a deeper level, is it making sense to us? Because as I have been telling you all the time, Brahma Sutras is about argumentation. It's also about polemics. It's also about logically analyzing the statements in the Upanishads. Though we have not started doing that properly, means logical analysis of the Upanishadic statements have not yet begun, but still you get an idea. Going by how Shankaracharya is quashing one argument after the other, and how he is putting to rest all the standpoints or perspectives of the opponent. Now, this is what I want to. So, now what we are studying is Shankaracharya's commentary on the Brahma Sutras. So, the way Shankaracharya takes this commentary forward and the amount of logical thinking involved, which will only become more and more and more complex and complex as we go further. What do you feel, or what is your take on this particular way of proceeding? Means I'm trying to ask you, what is your evaluation? Now, one thing is that Shankaracharya, Acharya Shankara, who is considered to be an incarnation of Shiva, and so we consider him a prophet, etc. That part apart, as a commentator on Brahma Sutras, as a teacher of Advaita Vedanta, how do you think he is taking the text forward? Means your honest and your sincere idea. Because basically, you see, whenever we take up a text, it could be by a prophet, it could be by an incarnation, or it could be just by some plain author. The whole point in studying the text is to understand the text, is it not? So that's the whole aim, that's the whole game also, if we can use a different phraseology. So if you have to understand the text, then we have to also understand the mind of the author of the text. You have to some extent understand what is she or he trying to tell here, and above everything else, we have to understand whether this makes any sense, or is it at all relevant to my course of study or my course of practice, because we are into spiritual life, so this practice or praxis comes into importance. So that's what my question is. So Vipulji, you can tell me whether, first, how do you see Shankaracharya is going with the text, or where do you see he is going? Of course, it's too early to say where he is going, but then traditionally we believe that Chatushutri, or the first four sutras of the Brahma Sutras, are considered to be representative of the rest of the text. So, where do you think Shankaracharya is taking us? Acharya Shankara is taking us. A, and B is, where do you think the importance of logic lies in your study of scriptures, or in your personal life as it is? And C, how do you think that this particular text is making sense to you? And B and C are little different. B is more about how is it relevant to your study or your spiritual life, and C is how do you make sense of what Shankaracharya is trying to tell you. So please try to answer these three questions.
So coming to the first, answering to the first question. So where is it going? Where is Shankaracharya taking us in the study of Brahma Sutra? My understanding so far has been that giving a very clear picture of, or very clear understanding of what the concept of Brahman is and what it is not also. So there are, that's where the different schools of philosophies have been brought in, and one after the other the logic has been brought in, as so far as we have understood, right, that what is the concept of Brahman. That is one part of it. The other component is the the fallacies that we are living in, the superimposition of in which we are living in, or the falsehood that we are living in, right? So first is understanding that that is creating certain perceptions, certain impressions. So first quashing that slowly, and then going to, okay, now that we have understood this, how do we understand? So then it's coming to the point, okay, Brahman is the one that we want to understand. Now what is Brahman? Going there is, I believe, the goal of it, and that everybody's goal is to attain Brahman or understand Brahman. That is the goal of everybody. That's what where it is taking through logic. Now the importance of logic is that first thing is, one is like we can believe it, very simply believe it. Uh, but the problem with just going by a belief is that very soon a counter argument or some other divergent schools of thought, if it is, if my understanding is not very solid, then I will can be very quickly swayed away to all other kinds of uh, logic which are not necessarily right. So being able to go through it, right, being able, so that's why the concept of the shunyavada, or the concept of why there is that path is not, while there are some good things in that path, but that's not really leading me to the ultimate of understanding of Brahman, or the concept of Ishvara. And that Ishvara is different, and Ishvara is building everything. So coming to the question, that the very interesting question was, so who created Ishvara? Then there you suddenly your logic stops. Then you understand, oh, that's incomplete in its logic. So this way of taking it, then the student, so in this case us, we are getting that conviction, okay, this is the correct path of going. That makes our understanding also very solid. And when I am following a certain path, I am very sure at that point of time, okay, I'm on the right path. So that's where I think the logic is very important, and that's what I found. The way Shankaracharya is taking it so far has been really good. I mean, it has been like taking all the possibilities. That there's a strength of it is taking all the possibilities, all the logic, and then establishing a logic which it is believing. And he's open to argument, right? He's also opening up to argument. He himself is opening up to the argument and taking us there. So these are two. I forgot the third one. What was the third?
How is it affecting your
relevant to your life?
Okay, I guess since I am in this class, I believe somewhere means that I believe that I am very keen on taking on the spiritual, following the spiritual path. And when I'm doing that, I need to have very clear thinking why I should even do that. And if I have to do that, which path I should follow, right? What should be my thought process? And all of us have somehow been, more, mostly a thinking process typically of a human being is more very analytical. In that case, this analysis is actually helping me to establish my personal life on a path where I am constantly arguing. It's not only the class, right? Otherwise, also I'm reading books, arguing with myself, and establishing, okay, this is the right path to go or not. So that it is helping me tremendously.
Maitriji, apart from these points, do you have anything to add or
Uh,
anything new?
Brahma Sutra, actually, Shankaracharya is trying to establishment. It is telling the same thing what the Upanishads tells. That means the Jivatma, there is no difference between the Jivatma and Paramatma. But due to ignorance, we are not able to understand that, and we are bringing out several entities. So we are making a difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. It is already there in the Upanishads, but in Brahma Sutra, the difference is what Vipula said, that he is bringing the viewpoints of the Purvapakshan or the opponent. Why he is doing it? Because he wants to establish the logic. If simply we accept it, okay, what Upanishads tells, I accept it, okay, as a spiritual person or being grown up in an environment, maybe I will accept it. But someday somebody argues with me, I will not be able to give a counter logic why he is wrong and why I am right. So that part he is doing, and he is doing it with the help of logic. Each stage he is bringing the ideas of the opponents, and he is showing us, yes, this could be the counter argument from the person who doesn't believe it as it is, that Jivatma and Paramatma is the same, and this is all Brahman, and so due to our ignorance we are all seeing so many entities, and there is so other ideas are coming up, superimposition. And he is bringing different ideas of Indian philosophies and other philosophies, and from there also he is showing us that these are the sides he is taking. But ultimately, since Advaita Vedanta is very firm on one thing, that there is no duality, it is only non-dual. He is establishing that, and he is doing it very, very logically, and that helping us to really accept it. And going forward, I think though we are attending the class, we will have no confusion in our mind that this is not correct, Maharaj. This is the impact I very personally feel that it is having in my life. I also had lot of questions earlier that these things are said, but how do we know that this is correct? But going through the Brahma Sutra, now it is becoming very clear that this is only correct. This is only correct, and we are probably going forward with a very firm conviction that if we go through this road, we will ultimately achieve the goal.
And Serenji, apart from the three questions, if you have anything to add to which has not been already said by these two people, if you have to add to that, if you have anything new regarding these three questions, and apart from that, you see, basically philosophy means critiquing things. It's about becoming critical, not in the sense of criticizing, but having a critical approach to things and critiquing things. That's what we see even in Acharya Shankara's or Shankaracharya's methodology, where he brings up Purva Paksha or the opponent himself and presents the view of the opponent and tries to quash it. So that is one way, and so we need to there is one method of studying where you study the scriptures. So as long as you study the scriptures from a devotional perspective, then there is probably no room for critical approach or a critiquing of the thing which you are studying. But the moment when you have started studying Brahma Sutras, you have already entered philosophy proper. It's not just about a devotional spiritual path, but you have already entered philosophy, and philosophy is all about being critical in a philosophical sense of the term, and being critiquing things. So that is another thing, Sirenji, which I would like to ask you is that how do you see Shankaracharya's methodology, and how will you critique his methodology? Means it's one thing to say that going Ganga about a methodology, saying that everything is hunky dory about that, but probably it is not. Probably now that we are centuries apart from the time when Shankaracharya originally wrote this, what could be something different if Shankaracharya were to write it today in 2017? And also, what could be the factors which we could take in while studying Shankaracharya's commentary? Means, what if you were to critique his commentary, particularly the Adhyasa Bhashya and whatever portion of the commentary on the second sutra and the commentary on the first sutra we have already finished. So, whatever you have seen, how do you critique Shankaracharya's commentary? This, and if you have anything to add on to the answers of the to the three questions.
The only thing I want to add is like when we do self-study, we feel we have understood a lot of things, but in a classroom setting, like if we have misunderstood something, that also gets clarified. So that way, I find this class to be very helpful. So that is the only point which I wanted to add. Regarding critiquing his work, I think the basic fundamental need, I mean, no matter which point we are in time, when people want happiness and they want something which is permanent and eternal. I mean, these two needs were no different from the caveman as to now. So that way, I think like these are like truths which are valid across time and space. I mean, it doesn't depend on a particular location or it doesn't depend on a particular time. So that way, I'm not sure if anything else could be added, but like most of it which could be added is and which has already been done in Gita, basically an amalgamation of all the paths like logic, devotion, and work, karma yoga. So if these can be, instead of presenting them separately, I mean, if it can be given as a like holistic view, which has already been done in Gita, I think that would be like the good. But either way, I feel like it is eternal over space and time. So I wouldn't think like anything new can be added.
The problem of suffering, of course, is eternal, and the problem of suffering and the need to get a solution from need for the solution is also eternal. But the very fact that Shankaracharya is commenting on the Brahma Sutras shows that there is a need for change in the format, because Shankaracharya, Buddhists or Bhagavan Buddha or Lord Buddha also talked about the problem of suffering. He also gave a path to get out of suffering. But probably that was, it seems even philosophical traditions have an expiry date. So it seems that expiry date was over. And so Shankaracharya came and he had to fight two major forces. One is Mimamsakas and another one, the Buddhists. So what I am trying to understand here is your idea on the critique of not the essence of philosophy, which is to get rid of suffering, but the critique of the format in which that new philosophy is presented, because that changes. Because you see, Swamiji came, Sri Ramakrishna came, so the format changes. So how do you find any thing which you say that it could have been like this, or it could say Brahma Sutra can be, because you see, even today we are studying Brahma Sutra exactly like Shankaracharya presented it. So could there be a different way of approaching the Brahma Sutra commentary of Shankaracharya?
So actually, it is not my idea, my kid's suggestion. So what I feel, and I somehow agree with him. So that's why I'm just
so your
like
kid
bringing
is
up.
how old?
10 years old, and he told this answer when he was 8 years old. But he said like what happens is like we have started like at age 30 or so. I mean, initially we did the puja, but it was more like a devotional point of view. We didn't understand what we were doing, but we had to do some rituals. But if these things could be done he said being ordinary. He used the word being ordinary, but at a very grassroots level, like just as the old rishis, they started from 10 years and they slowly understood this logic. So similarly, if this could be brought for children, I mean, in schools as a curriculum or whatever, because I find this to be very scientific. So I guess the sooner people get started on it, I probably it could help. I think that's the only, because you have to have, like, the idea is you have to have certain qualification to start studying it, which I agree. Again, those qualifications, like if you know that okay, this is what is the good part of the study, maybe you will be proactive in achieving those qualifications from a much earlier age.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, tell me.
But what I feel at times that when especially looking around what you say 10 minutes back about the children coming to the school not even fully prepared for coming to the school. In spite of we are having so many things, so rich in ideas, probably it has not, we have not been able to make this thing a way of our life. Once it has made the way of our life, then probably it will it will be, it is time tested, of course. Or in Hindu philosophy, what we are reading Upanishads and Gita, they are all time tested. But once it becomes a way of life, then probably there will be no need for even to teach it separately. Okay, those who want to understand the original books in the original language, for them it is different. But for without studying that also, people probably will stick to the basic values and the basic understanding. That probably is required, Maharaj.